Hi, I'm Michelle with Moms Are Frugal, and I'm going to go over some of our history homeschool lessons today. This week we were working on ancient Phoenicia, and that is part of our timeline. Each week we do timeline, and that is on Tuesdays. Last year, I got the idea to try our history a little bit different and try to include more of a learning process and check more boxes off with one sort of curriculum idea that I had to make sure that maybe I can cover more subjects under one subject. So by that I mean I wanted to cover creative writing. I wrote down exactly what I wanted to cover and I hit 4 topics, but I wanted to cover history. I wanted history to fall under the timeline subject. I wanted to cover creativity. I wanted creative writing. I wanted presentation skills. I wanted them to get reading comprehension. I wanted them to get research. So I sat down and I developed this type of learning process that we go through each week now on timeline, and I have to say that my kids absolutely adore it. Timeline is one of their favorite subjects now, and it is one that I see them striving to do better in each week. The work behind it, the projects and everything, I cannot even describe to you how nice it is to have them intrinsically motivated instead of me pushing them or asking them, hey, are you ready to do this? Hey, do you have your timeline done? Hey, do you have this? History has now become one of their more fun subjects, and I really feel like they're learning a lot in both ways of being creative, being able to follow directions. And I was able to mark off several of the topics and subjects that I wanted to hit, and that would just fall underneath timeline. And it doesn't necessarily save us time, but it does cover more of what we need to cover. So first, I'll go over our topic this week, which was ancient Phoenician homeschool history lesson. So this week we were in Phoenicia, and Phoenicia ended up being a very interesting place in Carthage. That is one of the places that they had a study on, and we found out that they were the first to implement and use glass bottles, which were perfume bottles. They were seafarers and they were traders. They were living on the ocean, and they would go and they were merchants. So they would go get things from one place and transport them to another place. And it was just interesting to watch my children read and learn all about this and then implement it into our learning process. And so along with that, so we studied ancient Phoenicia, and part 1 is a creative writing paper that I asked for. So this would cover writing skills, this covers grammar, because for each grade level I have age appropriate requirements. So I have a 10-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 16-year-old. So each grammar level and English level applies to each student in their paper, but I kind of teach under the one-room schoolhouse where we have a topic and I give a subject and then I divide it up between the levels. Instead of buying 3 different curriculums, I set my process up under 3 different levels, and we dove into a topic. So with that being said, here's what we did. So we have a creative writing paper. Their topic was the day in the life of a Phoenician. So they had to write it from behind the scenes, which covered creative writing. They had to work on comma usage. They had to work on their capitals. They had to work on paragraphs. And in all of that, they had to write it as a day in the life of a Phoenician. So that was the first part of our creative writing. The second part is a hands-on project. So I give them 3 options of something they can make. Now in the garage, I keep a large box of things such as old boxes, Amazon boxes, lids, recyclables, some tin cans, like whatever. I don't keep a ton of it, but I keep enough for each child to have projects to do each week. We have some bubble wrap, I have tissue paper, I have just yarn, just some scraps of things, but that just saves us on craft purchases, and I'm able to use my money in a better spot or place for our curriculum or our learning needs. So that also teaches them to kind of look around and use what they have to make something instead of always running to the store to buy something. We have a lot of recyclables and things that are hand and are disposable, and turning something into what someone else might call trash. We, a couple of weeks ago, made a kite from a paper bag. So anyway, that was fun also. So I try to be creative and teach them to use what we have instead of trying to break a budget or trying to implement spending into it. We have to look around and see if we have something in the house first before we go purchase it. But of course, sometimes we do have to go purchase it. So next on the list, we have our hands-on project. So they had to make a perfume bottle, or they could make a ship like the seafarers who traveled and were merchants and traded goods. And so they had to build a ship, how the Phoenicians, not just any ship, it had to be how the Phoenicians would have built their ship. And then finally, they had to do a temple. They could do a temple of the Phoenicians, and no one actually did that temple because I think it involved a little more than they were willing to try for. So I ended up with 2 perfume bottles, and the way each of them designed the perfume bottle that was separate from their brother was very interesting. One ended up putting a liquid in it and using peppermint as a sort of perfumey type smell with a little straw so that you could pour it out, and they had a squishy top that he'd used tissue paper to make the squishy top so that it would spill over and we would be able to try it out of a recycled jar that he had painted blue and added decorative carvings. The other one used another type of recyclable product and made a game out of it, but he had the top to screw on and off like a perfume bottle. And then my other child made a ship the way the Phoenicians did. Anyway, it was all very neat, and I'm always so excited each week to see what they do and how they do it and what ideas they come up with. I write the assignment on the board and I let them have total and complete freedom on this, but I have my guidelines because I always want to see what they're going to come up with. Okay, so the next part is a presentation skills. So they have 5 minutes to give a presentation over their 2-page paper. My 10-year-old has to do a 1-page paper and use the grammar skills that I require, which again this time was comma usage, capitals, and paragraphs. So the older 2 have to have 2 paragraphs, and then if they want to do something else as part of their presentation, each part of this, I want to backtrack, each part of this is 25 points, so they get a total of 100 points. So the presentation skills, they would get 25 points for doing their best, for presenting, for using good eye contact. We go over good presenting skills, and they get practice each week with this. So that's the next item that we work on. Finally, reading comprehension. That is the last part. So I give them a section out of our reading history timeline book, and I tell them to read this, know it, go over it, study it, write notes if you need to, but this is what your comprehension questions are going to be on. So they get 5 comprehension questions, and they're worth 5 points each. And it's just interesting each week what part of the studying and the reading each one of them reads, and then I choose the questions, and how they each answer is very different and unique, but it is very fulfilling to know that they are enjoying it, that they're reading, that they're studying, that they're learning. They're also having an independence, and which is what we want in homeschooling. We don't just want our kids sitting doing worksheets, doing workbooks, doing these things. We want them interacting, we want them learning, we want them to enjoy being homeschooled. And it's not that much more work for me. I sit there and we all watch the presentations, we all look at the projects, and if someone makes up a game, we all play the game. And then at the end of it, I hand them out their sheets and they get their grades. And that has always been something since I came up with a plan a few years ago. That's kind of how I approach each subject, though. I try to find something that I can use many different ways of learning, many different topics into one, and make it a fun time of learning instead of just me teaching or talking at them and them working in a book or something. So I just wanted to share with you how we implement frugal homeschooling. in our homeschool. We have been doing this for almost 13 years now, so it has changed and evolved over the years. And this time we are trying to implement timeline lessons that are real life kind of and actionable tasks that they can go and independently work on. So again, this is Michelle from Moms Are Frugal. Thanks for joining me today.